Um, do I continue? Okay, sorry. For those of you who don't know me, I come from Washington State. I had 35 years of experience in Washington State Corrections, including a warden and a deputy warden of the women's prison in Washington State. Our facility, when I was the warden, was under a settlement agreement as well, as a result of staff sexual misconduct with incarcerated women. So I've lived the experience from the administrator's position, and I keep reminding Administrator O'Day that there is light at the end of the tunnel. I think it was valuable for me to live that experience. I know that it was valuable. The end result was that that facility continues after I've been retired now 12 some years, that facility continues to be one of the safest in the United States. And I'm proud of the work we did under the settlement agreement. And it certainly helps me recognize what hard work is being done here at Edna and the change that we see. I have retired and have worked for the last 8 years as a corrections consultant with my expertise primarily in women's prisons and jails around the United States. In terms of this meeting, the first 60 minutes, as Commissioner Kuhn has said, will be speakers giving you updates regarding Edna specific to the settlement agreement. And the last 30 minutes will be questions, comments, and even your suggestions that you might have. So you can chat, if you will, your questions during the presentation, and someone will call on you during the last 30 minutes. During this first 60 minutes, if you will remain on mute until the question and answer period, please. And this is a reminder that the meeting is being recorded. So let's talk a little bit about why the settlement agreement, and then I'll just give a very quick update of what I've seen in this site visit that we've just finished. As you know, an investigation was conducted jointly by the Civil Rights Division and the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of New Jersey, and that the Department of Justice found reasonable cause to believe that the conditions at Edna violated the Eighth Amendment. Specifically, the Department of Justice concluded that Edna failed to protect prisoners from sexual abuse by the facility's staff. I should mention that investigation was done in 2018. A 3-year settlement after that investigation and the findings of that investigation, a settlement agreement was reached by the Department of Justice and the Department of Corrections and approved by the federal court, agreeing to take some actions in order to make the facilities sexually safer for the incarcerated persons to live and safer for the staff to work. And again, as Commissioner Kuhn has told you, the date of that settlement agreement was August 24th, 2021. So my role as the federal monitor, I used to be a probation and parole officer in one of my past lives. And I often make the analogy that really it's the same thing. When somebody was on probation or parole, they had conditions that was set by the court for them. And my job as a probation or parole officer was to report to the court and let the court know how that parolee or probationer was doing. And that's really this exact same analogy that I do here as a federal monitor. I am required to make reports twice a year to the court to let them know how the Department of Corrections and Edna Mahan is doing in terms of abiding by the settle agreements that they have made. This is the 5th report coming up, and we just finished, my associate and I just finished the 5th compliance visit this week. In order to make that report, I get documents throughout the 6 months virtually. I read all kinds of investigations. I look at policies. I look at documentation of tours being conducted and many of the agreements that was made, the settlement agreements. I also begin before I come by talking virtually, which is wonderful. We used to never think about that ability to do that. And so I talk with most staff from a Commissioner Kuhn down to her, many of the people at this table, and lots of the staff at Edna Mahan. So I have a good idea from staff's perspective, what's been done. And then when we come out, my associate and I, we spend most of our times with the incarcerated persons, both in focus groups, individually, anybody who wants to talk to me. And the staff who are watching at Edna Mahan can certainly verify this. They'll give me an hour to go out to tour a facility or a building that I'm there 2.5 hours because I'm visiting so much. So I gather information primarily from those people that I've talked about. The reporting period for this reporting is August 2023 through February 24. So we just finished the 5th reporting period. And I write a report to the court, and that report is due in April of this year. So that's a little bit I can tell you just briefly, and I can come back and tell you more specifically. We continue to see great progress. The difference that we see from the settlement agreement, when the settlement agreement was entered in 2021, is marvelous and truly night and day difference. I really do applaud the work that's been done by many of the people at the table, all the people at the table, and particularly by the leadership team at Edna Mahan. I think Administrator O'Day is a marvelous leadership, and the staff at Edna. The thing that amazes me is they're not doing it because it's a settlement agreement. They're truly not. They want the best for the staff and for the incarcerated people. They go way beyond some of the things that they're bringing into, and some of the things you'll probably hear today goes way beyond the requirements of the settlement agreement. The staff here at Department of Corrections are not checking boxes. They are committed, they are caring, and they want a better facility. So it's a pleasure to work with them. So I guess that's kind of an overview, a real quick overview of who I am and what my role is. In terms of the rest of the program, I'll facilitate the portion of the public comment portion of the session. So again, you can either chat your question or raise your hand if you're in the audience, and we'll turn the mic on and ask your question. And if you can remember to ask which member of the panel you'd like to ask your question to. And with that, let me introduce Deputy Commissioner Erin Nardelli.
Good morning, I'm Erin Nardelli. I'm the Deputy Commissioner for the Division of Operations for the New Jersey Department of Corrections, and I have some brief comments with regard to some progress we have made in operations this reporting period. I'm also here today proudly representing the professional men and women of this department. They work very hard each day to serve our citizens with bravery and integrity. Meeting the many missions of our department requires great care and sacrifice, and they are those that are responsible for putting into practice the thousands of written requirements of their duties, and we thank them for that. At Edna Mahan Correctional Facility and in the Department of Corrections as a whole, we maintain zero tolerance for sexual abuse or harassment. We value the safety of the incarcerated persons, and we ensure our protocols are consistent with sexual safety. We do this through strong supervision, and we do this through technology. Specifically with regard to body-worn camera advances, we continue to work towards utilizing technology to ensure accountability and transparency. While many correctional agencies have body-worn camera in some respect or in small deployments, New Jersey was one of the very first to have body-worn camera in each and every correctional facility and our specialized units, with an overwhelming majority of our uniformed staff utilizing body-worn camera every day, every shift. We have worked to refine our procedures to ensure compliance with relevant laws and guidelines, and we've actually been a resource to other states and government agencies in this regard as they have developed their own. In 2023 at Edna Mahan Correctional Facility, With an average population of under 400 incarcerated persons, we have recorded over 360,000 videos with over 30,000 hours of body-worn camera footage. Healthcare services. The New Jersey Department of Corrections Health Services Unit has now placed an additional emphasis on accountability through auditing of contracted services provided to the population. The New Jersey DOC Health Services Unit is now being refashioned into a healthcare compliance unit who will maintain as their chief focus compliance with the healthcare contract to ensure appropriate medical and mental health care is provided. We also have worked this monitoring period in the Division of Operations to enhance family reunification and make sure we maintain those bonds with our loved ones and the incarcerated persons. We have done this year by expanding some access to video visitation. This was effectuated by assigning additional staff to increase evening opportunities. So Edna Mahan now has 5 additional opportunities, 5 days per week in the evening for an increase of 25 sessions. So in all, that's 13 sessions a day or 65 per week in all our general population units at Edna. Edna Mahan Correctional Facility remains in full compliance with the Dignity for Incarcerated Primary Caretaker Parents Act, offering visitations 6 days per week for contact visits, in addition to varied specialized units that occur at our facility. And at this time, I'd like to introduce our Chief of Staff, Christina Chevenko. Thank you.
Good morning. I would like to take a few minutes just to provide an update on the department's recruitment and retention efforts. The department continues to follow the Edna Mahan Correctional Facility Recruitment and Retention Plan for women correctional officers. We are leveraging various platforms such as social media, online recruiting sites, and internal wellness programs to recruit and retain officers. Our recruitment initiatives continue into Delaware, Pennsylvania, and New York City areas and include attendance at recruitment events, job fairs, educational institutions, vocational programs, and public events throughout New Jersey and the neighboring portions of Pennsylvania and New York. Between September through February of this year, our recruitment team attended 10 in-person career fairs, 2 virtual career fairs, visited over 30 high schools and vocational high schools, and visited approximately 5 colleges, all in just the geographical area surrounding Edna Mahan Correctional Facility. In addition, the department has just recently secured a contract with a full-service marketing agency to develop an advertising campaign for the recruitment of NJDOC officers. As previously reported, due to legislation enacted in January of 2022, the department now can hire directly without utilizing the civil service process. This past February, the department graduated class 255 with 86 recruits, which was the 3rd non-civil service class. For the last 3 classes, graduation numbers have steadily increased. Class 256 is going to be the department's 4th non-civil service class and is scheduled to begin March 18th. We hope to continue with the trend of our graduation rates with this class. Class 256, we will be piloting our first residential optional academy. The hope is that this will assist in recruitment, including of female applicants. While processing is now closed for class 256, those interested in a career as a correctional police officer with New Jersey Department of Corrections can apply for class 257, which will begin this fall by visiting the NJDOC website. Also, as part of our recruitment and retention efforts, for those that are applying, they will continue to receive the benefit of having our mentorship program work with them through the hiring process and while they're at the academy. Some specific examples of the benefits that are offered through the mentorship program is that the individuals will be provided with contacts to the mentorship staff through emails, calls, and text messages. They will be provided with assistance with their document preparation, notary services, and medical appointment scheduling. Individuals will receive preparation through our pre-employment physical program, and that is administered twice a week. In addition, the recruits will be provided with follow-up contacts throughout the entire hiring process. And once at the academy, they will have weekly meetings with the mentors. Finally, to assist with recruitment, the department received approval from the Civil Service Commission to increase the salary of our recruits effective September 5th of 2023. With thanks to the governor's office, this past November, we reached a new 4-year agreement for our correctional police officers, which would provide an across-the-board salary increase of 3.5% each year, with the possibility of additional annual salary adjustments. In addition to annual salary adjustments, the new agreement also implemented a revised salary schedule that will allow for increased take-home pay. Salaries for starting correctional police officers now begin at $49,680 annually, and senior correctional police officer salaries under the new contract will range from $68,000 to $123,000 annually by the end of the contract. This new agreement is a big step in aiding in recruitment and retention. In addition, in the past few months, the department has seen a significant decrease in attrition. In fact, the current attrition rate is the lowest since 2012 when the department began tracking this data. The department holds staff professionalism and wellness strategic planning meetings to evaluate goals and progresses. These meetings are instrumental in ensuring our commitment to the well-being of our staff and is continuously aligned with our department objectives. The Committee of Employee Morale and Innovation has been a significant development with the goal of improving, informing, and empowering all personnel and advancing the Your Voice Counts campaign. CME has organized open houses at all of the facilities over the past 8 months, which showcase career and training opportunities within the department. At this time, I would like to invite Chief Sessoms, who heads the Division of Programs and Reintegration Services.
Morning, Commissioner, my colleagues, and Monitor Ms. Purnell. First, I want to start off by echoing the sentiments of DC Nardelli and indicate that we are very proud of our staff and we commend them for the hard work that they do each and every day for the Department of Corrections. Ms. Purnell mentioned that the speakers will give comments and updates specific to the settlement, but I have the pleasure of actually reporting on things outside of the settlement agreement that the commissioner felt was important for the public to know. So I'm going to highlight a few items from our division to let you know what we've been working on. First, I'm going to start with what I left off with you last time, Ms. Purnell, and that is an update on the ACEs, something that you were very excited about. So when you were here last time, we were in the process of just starting the RFP. We have finished that process and we have selected a vendor. The finalization of that agreement will be today at 3:30. This particular vendor was selected due to their extensive work with justice-impacted women inside and outside of the institution and their shared cultural experiences and their ability to empower other women. The outline of services is not limited to just conducting an assessment. We actually don't start with the assessment. We start with 2 weeks of rapport building and resiliency development, then followed by the actual assessment and debriefing with the results with the women. So we're excited about that commencing in April. In November of 2023, at both campuses, we launched the African Storytelling of Women of the Bible in partnership with Princeton Theological Seminary. This is open to all and there is no proselytizing that happens. It is a year-long, 50-week program telling of the historical trauma of women from the beginning of time and the intersection of how it impacts the concept of suffering and resiliency. In December of 2023, we launched the Chaplaincy Challenges, again at both campuses. This is a 3-month-long interfaith challenge focusing on gaining understanding and tolerance of those who think and believe differently from us. The challenge was conducted in a Jeopardy-style manner with numerous teams signing up to compete, and boy, the women were highly competitive at Edna. This challenge will end in March and we will award a winner. In February 27th, 2024, just this week, we launched in partnership with the Women's Center for Entrepreneurship Incorporated, the Women for Women, Building Your Own Business. The women have already begun with their elevator pitch, the hook, line, sinker method, and this is funded in partnership with a cooperative agreement with the U.S. Business Administration. We also have reinstated weekend worship services. For long, weekend worship services were not occurring at Edna. In partnership with Fountain Church, we now have a continual weekend worship service for both grounds and max. Every Sunday afternoon, there are 2 teams consisting of a male and female worship leader. The teams rotate every 3 months, and the schedule has been outlined for the entire 2024 year. Currently, we are also in the process of processing the applications for a Spanish-speaking team. Once their criminal background process has been completed and they have completed their PREA training, they will be included in the rotation, and their services will take place on Sunday evenings from 6 to 7. New programs that we have on the horizon include the Natural Hair Care Service and Business Industry. This 12-week curriculum is taught by loctician, and I want to make sure we understand it's loctician, not lactician. Loctician trainer and businesswoman of the first Loctician School founder, Kiana Yanni Johnson. She will teach the women about natural hair care and the process of owning a natural hair care business. Lastly, our trauma services continue to expand, with us now adding post-release contact for those who were enrolled in our trauma services while they were incarcerated and now have been out, making sure that they continue to receive the services that they need post-release. And at this time, I'll turn this over to Assistant Commissioner Kelly Daniels of the Special Investigations.
Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, Commissioner. Good morning, Ms. Parnell. My name is Kelly Daniels. I am the Assistant Commissioner for the Special Investigations Division. And as you know, if you've watched before, I usually provide some updates on the cases, and I will do that. But I do want to just give a thanks to the Special Investigation Division. We are staffed by a dedicated team of hardworking professionals who work every day tirelessly to make a difference in the department. They do their job well, and they do their job well because they want to do it well. So I just wanted to reach out and say thank you. During this reporting period, we had 8 allegations of sexual abuse that were reported to the monitor in the Department of Justice per our consent decree. Just as a comparison, the last reporting period, there were 16. All 8 of these new cases remain under investigation, 4 jointly with the prosecutor's office, and 4 are under administrative review by SID. During this reporting period, of the cases that we closed, 3 were substantiated. 2 relate to a prior staff member that I mentioned during my last public comment, who had been criminally convicted by the Hunterdon County Prosecutor's Office. The last substantiated claim relates to a claim of retaliation. In terms of our update on policy and training, I note that SID had 3 new policies last reporting period that were approved by DOJ and the monitor. I'm happy to report that all of SID who are assigned to Edna, to the Special Victims Unit, and also our PREA liaisons have all been trained on those policies. And a note on the liaisons, one of the things that we implemented this last reporting period is a liaison for all sexual abuse allegations in every single facility. So that means that every SID office now has a liaison that focuses on that issue. And all of them, including the liaison at Edna, have been trained on our new policies. Separately, our Special Victims Unit investigators and our Edna investigators continue to attend specialized training. And we have a training unit that is constantly looking for, searching for relevant training for them, and they are sent whenever we identify that. With that, I'd like to introduce AC Tomei.
Good morning. I'm Elena Tomei, Assistant Commissioner of Women's Services, and I thank each of you for joining us today for our public meeting as we kick off Women's History Month. Since our last update in September, our focus has centered on reinforcement and permanency. We've come a long way in the past 30 months. We've made significant strides in reinforcing practices that have proven effective and integrating them permanently into our operational framework. This commitment has been instrumental in creating a stable and supportive environment for both staff and incarcerated persons, allowing us to maintain momentum towards achieving full compliance with the settlement agreement and fostering a culture of sustained success and excellence. As the settlement agreement coordinator, accountability remains paramount. In the past reporting period, we have provided, as Jane indicated, required verification information, maintained continual communication with Ms. Parnell and the Department of Justice, delivered the semi-annual status report, made outreach and established better relationships with external stakeholders, as well as achieved significant milestones in policy development, with 14 department-wide policies revised and adopted, including those addressing sexual abuse and harassment, prevention, detection, and response. We now move on to focus and emphasize the importance of effective trauma-informed and gender-responsive staff training to ensure full comprehension and implementation of these updated policies, as well as the adoption of several facility level policies and procedures. Reinforcing established procedures and practices also serves as a form of ongoing education and training. By consistently revisiting and reinforcing these practices, we provide staff members with regular opportunities to refresh their knowledge, hone their skills, and stay informed about any updates or changes. This continuous learning process is essential for ensuring that staff members are equipped to fulfill their roles and responsibilities. So from August 25, 2023 to February 24, 2024, we've delivered 27 different training courses totaling over 72 hours, covering a diverse range of topics essential to our mission, including resiliency, PREA, LGBTQI+, cultural diversity, and gender-responsive approaches for women offenders. We value the perspective of incarcerated persons and remain committed to amplifying their voices. As the commissioner indicated earlier, we're proud to announce that the second edition of the newsletter, Perceptions Reimagined, highlighting the unique viewpoints of those within our facility, is slated to be published this month. I'm also happy to announce that we've taken significant steps in our ongoing commitment to sexual safety. We issued a request for proposals, and we've selected a vendor to collaborate with us on the development of a new professional, authentic, and women-specific awareness video for incarcerated persons at Edna Mahan. This initiative, tailored specifically for the Department of Corrections, will address the unique needs of incarcerated women. It will serve as a tool in effectively communicating crucial information to our population, covering topics such as DOC's zero tolerance policy towards sexual abuse, common survivor reactions and responses, dynamics of abuse and confinement, reporting procedures, rights to protection and confidentiality, examples of official duties, guidance on confidentially reporting incidents, accessing interpretation services, receiving emotional support services, and contacting relevant divisions such as the Special Investigations Division and Office of the Corrections Ombudsperson. This project marks an important addition to the existing ongoing education and information initiatives at Edna Mahan. It underscores our dedication to ensuring the safety and well-being of all individuals within our facility, And we're excited about the positive impact that this video will have and look forward to its completion. In closing, I want to reinforce our unwavering commitment to the principles of safety, accountability, gender responsivity, and rehabilitation. They're at the heart of our mission. And with that, I am pleased to introduce Mr. Ryan O'Day, Administrator of the Edna Mahan Correctional Facility. Thank you.
Thank you, AC Tomei. Good morning. My name is Ryan O'Day, and I am the Administrator of Edna Mahan Correctional Facility. And this is the third monitor's reporting period under my leadership at EMCF. In the last reporting period, we continued to focus on communication, retaliation, and subtle retaliation, as well as limited English proficiency. Communication. IP Housing Liaison monthly meetings provide an excellent opportunity for management and IP information exchange. These meetings are attended by administration, majors, the business manager, maintenance supervisor, medical department, and mailroom supervisor. This monthly meeting provides the population with an opportunity to deliver concerns, suggestions, and new ideas to facility management. We also conduct frequent IP advisory groups hosted by a multitude of groups and individuals. For example, administration, the Edna Mahan Board of Trustees, directors, assistant commissioners, deputy commissioner, and even Commissioner Kuhn. These meetings provide the population with a unique access to the highest levels of state government with the goal of shaping reformative legislation and improving the conditions of confinement for incarcerated women in New Jersey. Staff communication is equally important. We have also engaged our staff in similar manners through staff focus groups, department head meetings, labor union meetings, and drop-ins with the administrator. LEP. New Jersey Department of Corrections takes steps to ensure effective communication with all incarcerated individuals, as mandated by Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. This includes providing orientation materials in accessible formats to accommodate diverse needs such as limited English proficiency, LEP. Interpretation assistance is readily available at EMCF through the phone interpretation service known as the Language Line, covering approximately 173 languages when in-person interpretation is unavailable. Additionally, a certified bilingual staff member appointed since August of 2022 assists in interpretation in English and Spanish, as confirmed by the DOJ. A healthcare provider is also certified as bilingual, confirmed by documentation provided to the Federal Monitor and DOJ. To improve mammogram accessibility for incarcerated persons with LEP, EMCF now offers a pre-test and post-visit consultation through the Language Line. To promptly notify staff and contractors about individuals on LEP roster requiring interpretation services, an EMCF executive assistant distributes a weekly list of relevant personnel. Stickers indicate LEP status affixed to the incarcerated person's identification card for easy recognition. In October, EMCF administration sent a memo to healthcare and mental health contract staff outlining guidelines for interactions with LEP incarcerated persons. It stressed strict adherence to specific protocols to ensure effective communication during medical, mental health, and substance use disorder treatment encounters. An analysis was conducted of linguistica interpretation and translation services usage at EMCF. This report notes that there was a 282% increase in interpretation services and a 400% increase in translation services between last reporting period and this most recent one. Retaliation. The zero tolerance policy, prison sexual abuse and sexual harassment, and the prevention, detection, response to sexual assault and harassment policies were both finalized in February 1st of 2024. These policies prioritize protection measures and support services for individuals who report incidents. NJDOC and EMCF are committed to promptly addressing subtle retaliation, ensuring accountability for staff actions, and fostering comprehensive awareness among staff and incarcerated persons. These policies further emphasize safeguards against retaliation and requires monitoring for potential retaliatory actions. Oversight falls under the Institutional PREA Compliance Manager, the IPCM, who conducts regular status checks and paper reviews for at least 90 days post-allegation. Disciplinary action is taken against anyone found to retaliate. To access emotional support services, incarcerated persons can use the star PREA pound number on the IP phone system, connecting them to Safe Hunterdon. For staff members, confidential emotional support services are available through the 888-4-BLUE-NJ hotline. Additionally, staff members have a confidential reporting route for allegations of sexual abuse and sexual harassment. The IPCM has integrated information on protections against retaliation, including subtle retaliation, on forms and into incarcerated persons' PREA education and orientation. Staff receive monthly PREA updates covering various topics, including retaliation. Questions specific to subtle retaliation has been included in the retaliation monitoring form. To enhance transparency, a tracking system for retaliation monitoring is in place, and incarcerated persons are notified of case closures and investigative outcomes. Additionally, a process has been established to report back to the Sexual Assault Advisory Committee members on completed recommendations and corrective actions. Bulletin boards in housing units display information on sexual safety rights and emotional support services, consolidating resources in one accessible location. NJDOC and EMCF take retaliation seriously and have enhanced communication to ensure everyone is informed. Now, I would like to welcome back Commissioner Kuhn to the podium.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning again. Just want to take a couple of minutes to provide some updates on where we are with the next female facility. When we were last together, we reported that Governor Murphy, with the support of the Senate and the Assembly, had provided initial funding to begin the launch of the new build for the female facility. Following the securing of that initial funding, the state has stood up a state female facility working group to continue to advance the project through the planning and building stages. The working group is made up of critical state partners from the Department of Treasury, DPMC, the DEP, DCA, and members of the NJDOC and others. And they are continuing to, and I mean diligently, work through the many phases of review and planning as you continue to prepare for the construction of the facility. Specifically at this time through the working group, and in particular through our wonderful partners at Treasury and DPMC, the next steps for the project include the publication for the request for proposal and scope of work for the A&E, that's the architect and engineer. And I just want to, like, my own personal thought is sitting in the seat and knowing where we were and how important it is to fully close the Edna facility. It's exciting to see this process, although I've said this before, I'm an impatient person, right? So I want it built yesterday. But it's exciting to see the process proceed and know that we are moving in that direction and see the investment by those in the working group, because this is the first time in New Jersey that we have an opportunity to purpose build a facility that is gender informed from the ground up. When we were also last together, we had mentioned that we were in the process of getting ready to close half of the physical facility at Edna Mahan. At this time, that partial closure, that half closure is complete. In October of 2023, the first phase of the Edna closure was accomplished. Half the physical facility at Edna is closed. So specifically the minimum facility, which we've also referred to as grounds, has been closed. At this time, the Edna satellite facility, which is a temporary facility, and I do want to stress temporary because it's only going to house half the population until the new facility is opened. The satellite facility is fully opened. And if you've joined us before, you've heard us mention the benefits of the satellite facility. It's only a little over 3 miles from the current Edna facility. It's a newer facility. It has overall better physical conditions. It's temperature controlled. My goodness, I'll get that out, with abundant natural light. It does still have the security systems. It has the camera systems. It has body-worn camera. It has dorm-style housing. It has ample congregate areas to support community. Medical, social services, educational opportunities are in close proximity. Laundry, food service, phones, communication, and other amenities are on site. And I think one of the things that's most unique about the satellite is it provided us the opportunity to open the honors housing unit, which provides additional incentives and amenities for those that qualify and continues to encourage positive behavior and community building. So we're thankful for all of those who are assisting us as we proceed with this critical and very important project and are very happy with the process. And at this time, I think we are going to our virtual platform and we'll be introducing Cassandra Severe from our Board of Trustees.
Thank you, Commissioner Kuhn. Good morning, everyone. My name is Cassandra Severe, and I am happy to be here to bring greetings to all of you from the Board of Trustees. I am also pleased to let you know that since our last public meeting, the Board of Trustees has continued to connect regularly with the residents at EMCF. And we have been also working closely with EMCF administrators and staff to support them in their ongoing efforts to make positive change for residents and their loved ones. Given what the residents have shared with us in our visits and in our meetings with the advisory groups and the unit representatives, we have been monitoring ongoing improvements in several key areas, including medical services, ensuring continuity of programming services at the satellite location, including access to the college program, assuring safe and timely transport services, monitoring access to gender affirming products and care. And we are also listening closely to residents' concerns about commissary cost. Along with these areas of focus, we have been encouraged by the department's efforts to support residents preparing to go before the parole board, and also the increased attention to our shared commitments to reducing the number of residents reverted due to technical parole violations. The board also remains encouraged by stakeholders' discussions around possible avenues to advance the conversation around sentencing reform for criminalized survivors of sexual and gender violence. The board also met with the federal monitors since our last public meeting, and we have shared an update of our work with our insights. Overall, we continue to be heartened by the forward-looking agenda of the commissioner and her team, as well as the leadership of Mr. O'Day, and have been encouraged by the positive shifts we have seen happen at the facility. Let me also note that for the first time that we can tell, we have a Board of Trustees email that community members and also EMCF residents can use to contact us on matters of concern. We remain committed to working in collaboration with all of you and welcome your comments or any questions. Thank you so much.
And Cass, we always thank you. We thank you for your input and for your time on the board and for joining us again this morning. And Jane, I think at this time we return the program to you.
I think so. So again, this is the opportunity. You've heard from us, and now this is your opportunity for us to hear from you. This is the opportunity to both ask questions and give us your comments and any suggestions you have. We will start with a question from Assemblywoman Lopez. She writes, "Thank you, Commissioner Kuhn, for your leadership. Regarding furloughs, I know you've been working on this, and what's the current status?"
Happy to report on that. And I do have to say for the record, when I make reference to legislative leaders that are very interested in the women at Edna and where we were and where we are going, Assemblywoman Lopez is a leader in that regard. She and her team from day one have been, boots on the ground, very interested in the women, and have been very supportive. So, I thank the Assemblywoman and her team. With regard to furloughs, it is, it's one of those areas where it's going to take, and I also made reference to there being, we're working with legislators to take a look at some things that may be done that may be specific to the women of Edna, and furlough is one of those areas. The statute is very clear at this point who is eligible for furlough into the community. It is somewhat restrictive for a reason. And in looking at the sentences of the women at Edna, the length of the sentences of the women at Edna, the ages of the women at Edna, also rehabilitative release, legislation that's being reviewed. Furlough is one of those next steps that we are working with our legislators to make a determination if there are things that we can do that are specifically gender informed that could potentially allow women at Edna to be released on furlough into the community. So right now it's going to take some legislative action in order to do so, but we are, those are the statistics and things that we are working with our legislators with. So thank you, Assemblywoman Lopez, for raising the question.
There are a couple questions specific to, as you would imagine, the closing of Edna and the new facility. The first question is there, if there's money in the budget for renovations of facilities, why are we then using that money on a new facility?
I don't mean to smile with that question, but so anyone who sits in any type of seat where quite frankly, it's probably no different than, than us at home, right? Our budget does not meet all the modifications that we would like to make to our home, or that's no different in at the NJDOC. So overall, I think just in terms of capital construction projects across the board at NJDOC, there's in excess of $900 million of projects, of capital projects. The budget monies do not come close, so it's very important for us at NJDOC to strategically plan where we are able to utilize the budget monies that we receive for capital projects. And I am grateful to the Capital Commission for each dollar that you give us every year in order to tackle those capital improvements. This is something that's been very important to this administration. But those monies will not, and we've made that determination. And fortunately, we had the assistance of Steve Carter to assist us. The current Edna facility is not in that repairable condition. And it's important for us to close the current Edna facility and rebuild a facility that is purpose-built, that is gender informed, rather than attempt to renovate dilapidated colleges on that campus.
We just had another question specific to that. And can you explain what a gender informed facility is?
Absolutely. I mean, I think everybody should weigh in, including, AC Tomei, on that. Gender informed is, and I hate to harken back to what is it? I'm not sure which planet is which, right? Men are from Mars, women are from Venus, or it might be, is that it? I got it right? Yeah. Prisons cannot be one size fits all. And there are needs that women have that may not be appropriate if we're following the same structure as a male-built facility. There's different trauma, there's different programming space, there's different types of housing space. We also need to be very strategically informed with what the female population looks like, the length of sentence. Do we need to be preparing for an elderly population at the facility? Intake may look a little different. The needs of women are just different than the needs of men. And that's what a gender-informed facility looks like. But even our practices, and AC Tomei, I'll kick it over to you for this. Even our practices need to be gender-informed. DC, same thing from an operations perspective. I think that it's worth talking about, Jane, because I do mention it frequently, with what that means.
I agree, Commissioner. So There is a difference when we communicate with anybody. There's a difference between communication that works and communication that doesn't necessarily, isn't necessarily received as well. So there's a different way of communicating that we take into account when we talk about being gender informed. Take into account past experiences, family connections, medical experiences that are different that a woman experiences from their male counterparts, learning environments, what works best for them, even a residential setting, where they sleep at night. It's all things that we take into account when we're building or placing a woman in a situation where they're going to be housed longer term and receive services that are designed to help their rehabilitation. And I think that focuses on our mission of rehabilitation and instead of just solely punishment, punitive components. So.
DC Nardelli?
Sure. I would echo what AC Tomei says. So women, from a psychological perspective, women have a different sense of community. Women, whether you're incarcerated or not, at some point were the center of your family. And then when you separate that individual from their home environment into a facility designed for, is it designed for accountability? Is it designed for punishment, or is it designed really for rehabilitation and reintegration back into that family? There are people in the community that rely on that individual and will continue to rely on them for the rest of their lives. So there is a method to design an environment that promotes the sustained relationship of that individual with those that they will come home to and those that they remain responsible for. And we have to be sensitive to that when we design and build a new prison. Women also live in a style of a community that requires more communication and investment in understanding what's happening to them and to be able to speak their truth and to be heard. They generally need an educational environment that is inclusive of their history of trauma. Many women that come into correctional facilities have had a history of trauma in their lives, and we have to be sensitive to that. We have to be sensitive to that in how we treat them, in how we search them, in how we involve them in the fabric of the daily life of that facility. And when we say gender informed, that's exactly what it means. We have to think about gender as we plan and as we live our lives within that facility as well. And that is also for our staff.
I'll speak for Dr. Sessoms. She had to leave, but this question is often asked to me as I go around the United States. And what's the difference? I started in corrections, and I hate to say this, but in 1980, and we went through the academy, and the message was an inmate is an inmate. And luckily, that message is not there anymore. That there is a clear recognition that there is a difference between male and female incarcerated persons. In terms of programs, and this is where I say I'm going to speak for Dr. Sessoms, I think the best example is that we all know that a large amount of the incarcerated people, both male and female, are in prison for drug-related behaviors. But however, so we give drug treatment, but we give different drug treatment programs to men than we do for women. And the rationale is research tells us that they use drugs for different reasons. Men often use drugs on a social basis, and kind of a peer-led. Women, research will tell us, goes back to DC Nardelli's talk about trauma. And women, we know in our facilities, a large percentage. I've seen statistics as high as 95% of women in our facilities have emotional, sexual, or physical abuse and trauma from that. And so lots of the women in our facilities use those drugs to cover up the pain of those abuse. So to give the same drug treatment program to men and women when the motivation for using drugs is different is really a waste of resources. And that's, I think, probably the best example when we talk about why is programming different? Why are facilities different? What does gender informed mean? And so again, it's really, really important, both operationally and programs and in every sense of incarcerated person's experience to be gender informed on both sides. But it just happens, 90% of our incarcerated persons are male. And so our policies are mostly written for males. And so it really happens that when you work in a female facility, you really seem like the lone ranger that's saying, but what about me? What about the women? What about the women? So good discussion. Thank you. And we haven't gotten away from the last question about the new building, and that is, where will the incarcerated women be placed during the construction process?
So the women are going to remain where they are. That was one of the reasons why we closed half of the Edna physical facility and opened the satellite on a temporary basis to move those from the min or the grounds units while the new facility is constructed. And then the women who are on the maximum compound will remain on the maximum compound while we're constructing the new facility.
There are quite a couple questions directed to me. The first is, does the settlement agreement sunset in August of this year? And I'm not really the expert on that because I'm just hired to monitor it. But I do know that we've had a discussion with the attorneys on both sides, the Department of Justice and the outside counsel for the Department of Corrections. And we're all in agreement that it doesn't just go away. That in fact, and Rachel, you're out in the audience, so help me if I'm saying this right, that the Department of Corrections has to petition the court to have the settlement agreement go away. So sorry, Ryan, for this really bad news if I'm giving it to you. But and in the settlement agreement itself, and I do appreciate the fact that somebody wrote, said more information on the settlement agreement and the reports that I've written can be found on the New Jersey website, DOC website. And I'm glad that you put that up there. The settlement agreement itself, and again, I'm looking for you, Rachel, says that there has to be compliance for 2 consecutive reports before that we can consider the agency or the facility compliant. And so there are still, and you can see the report, there are still some areas of concern, progress, not perfection. And we have seen progress throughout. And actually what I'm doing right now is moving into the second question, which is, can the federal monitor provide observations from her visit? So I'm going to combine those two. Progress, absolute. I talked at the beginning. I was really happy to hear Administrator O'Day talk about the progress that they've made so significantly during this last reporting period. The 2 areas of concern noted, most notable in the last report, was around limited English proficiency and making sure that all the rights to those persons who don't speak English as their primary language, that was a concern. And the other area of concern was retaliation. So you did hear Administrator O'Day talk about those 2 areas that they have put much work into during this last reporting period. And we saw the difference. We've as you demonstrated with the percentages that he gave you, we know now that the language line is being used. Whereas before, probably a year or so ago, when we asked staff what the language line was, many of them didn't know how to use it. And that was never the case. There was the vast majority of staff now are comfortable with it. Administrator O'Day used it just a couple during this week while we were there. They're comfortable with it. The incarcerated persons know that they have the right to ask for use of that. And we've seen great progress in that area. Retaliation was another area. And for those who don't know the terms in terms of retaliation, it is that we want to make sure that if an incarcerated person files an allegation, and reports that something happened, that they're not treated differently after they've made that report. It was one of the settlement agreements paragraphs right away that they are not put in isolated confinement to keep them safe. They are not put in isolated confinement so that the special investigations unit can interview them. That they are not treated differently, that they are not having their room searched more often. Those kinds of particularly subtle retaliation. Subtle retaliation it falls under the umbrella of doing a job. So if I'm a correctional officer and I'm doing my job, but I'm doing it differently or more diligently with an incarcerated person that has reported. And so again, we saw great progress in that area as well. My associate and I met with 4 different incarcerated persons focus groups. I think we probably talked individually with over 20. And then again, those were formal interviews. That certainly doesn't count the time that I spend just walking around the units and talking. And we did not find one incarcerated person that couldn't give us an example of what subtle retaliation meant. They knew that they could report it. And in fact, I think it's a positive thing that and during this last reporting period, there were 5 allegations of retaliation, one of which was found substantiated, that the act had occurred. 5 allegations tells me that the women know that it's wrong, the incarcerated persons know, and that they know how to report that. 1 allegation was found unsubstantiated, which means they couldn't prove either way. And then 3 are still being investigated. So my observations, again, were in those areas. We saw great improvement. I want to spend just one more minute talking about this project is my heart. I mean, I cared. That's why I got in the business. That's why I stay connected to the business even after retiring. I care that the incarcerated persons are treated with dignity and respect through their entire incarceration, particularly around sexual safety, particularly around that. I wanted to share with you a story that an incarcerated person told us this week, and she has been incarcerated for 27 or 28 years. In 1997, while she was incarcerated, she was sexually abused, and she reported that. And the processes in 1997 were much different than they are now. And she talked about having to be hooked up to a lie detector because they didn't believe her. During the lie detector test, they started talking about her crime. She was uncomfortable with that. So she said, I want to stop this. And at that time, they said, since she wouldn't finish the lie detector, that she was lied and she was treated differently. She was put in segregation. I mean, it was just a terrible story from 1997. It makes me sad, and it makes me glad that we're all doing the work we're doing for these kinds of reasons. In 2010, while at Edna, she had another experience that of being sexually abused that she never reported, because she goes back to her experience of 1997, and she still had trauma and the effects of that. And I appreciate Commissioner. I mean, it's just
disgusting,
isn't it? And but the good news and the thing that makes me happy and the things that makes me proud of the work that people at Edna and in Department of Corrections are doing is that in 2024, she said she found her voice, that she was able to report that incident that had happened to her in 2010, and she was able to report it. And so, we asked how that process was for her. Was she heard? Was she respected? And in every way, she said yes, that she felt that it was kept confidential, that she felt that she was heard, that she was respected, that she was not retaliated against. And she recognizes how difficult proving anything that happened 14 years ago is without the cameras and without the technology that DC Nardelli talked about, but she found her voice. And so I just wanted to share that story with you because, again, those are some of the observations we get, and it makes me proud of the work you're all doing. No new questions have come in, so I don't know if there's any last minute things anybody wants to say, or we can just end with that really powerful story.
Thank you.
Thank you again, all of you who are in person. Thank you who are joining us with video. We look forward to another 6 months of progress, and we'll see you all, I guess it will be September. We'll see you all again in September.
Thank you.